Hello, Black Women Amplified. It is Monica Wisdom, and I could not let this week go by without talking about Joy-Ann Reid. Joy-Ann Reid is one of my favorite journalists. I love hearing her talk because she spits facts, and I've gotten to know her a little better through the calls that happen on when Black women win that they have on Sundays. And after the election, she came and gave a breakdown of the numbers, of the exit numbers, which really broke down a lot of myths and gave facts to who voted and who didn't vote. And prior to that, she was in my town at a diversity conference. And my cousin was here and he recorded it and sent it to me. And I was like, she's bad on and off camera. She's just a smart woman. And I also listened to her podcast, Read This, Read That, Read This and Read that she has with Jackie Reid. They talk more about pop culture and just more hot topics, vibe, some politics, but what's happening in real life for them and as well as what's happening with all Black people. But this week we found out that let's roll it back. On her podcast with Jackie Reid, Read This, Read That, she stated that she was in negotiations for her contract at MSNBC. And she was kind of apprehensive of talking about it, which is normal for anybody negotiating their contract. But something was like, And during that time, it was shortly after Kamala Harris had lost the election. And, well, everything is shortly after that. We've only been in this regime for, weeks? Seems like every week is another year. I wish. But she was talking about her doing this, and she was renegotiating her contract. So she's back on the air, so I just assumed that everything went fine. And found out later that she had been renewed for 1 year. Well, MSNBC got a new president. And apparently there's a shakeup going on with NBC. So here's my theory. After the election, people stopped watching MSNBC because everybody was so engaged and the election was so devastating to most of the people who watch MSNBC. People just stopped watching news altogether. And then Joe and Minka went to Florida and had their meeting, and that caused more people to stop watching. But Joy Reid still had her viewers, but the network was suffering because when you don't have viewership, the advertisers are like, whoa, why are we spending this money here? We can go spend it elsewhere, social media, all the things. So I don't know the numbers. I don't know what happened. I'm just speculating. But I just know that that's how business runs. Business is about numbers. They don't care about a whole lot of things that we care about. They care about the numbers mostly. But there was representation on MSNBC. Joy Reid, when I watch media, she's one person that I look to give facts. Her and a couple of other people, but not too many people. That's just my thoughts about things. But anyway, so she renews her contract. Everything's fine. Everything's great. Tuesday, she wins 2 NAACP awards, one of them for her show, The Readout on MSNBC, another one for her book about Medgar Evers. And Tuesday, she wins the award. Saturday, she gets X'd. So there wasn't like a pre-warning. She said she found out when we found out. Now, I don't know if that means she got an email before it went to media, and then she finds the news out Saturday, and then Tuesday is her final show. That's how quick it went. I thought, well, maybe she didn't renegotiate her contract, so maybe this is just the end of her, it just wasn't renewed, and this was the natural ending. No, she had renewed the show, and this woman came in, this new president. I don't remember her name. I think it's, I don't want to say because I don't remember. I didn't commit it to memory, child. And so I was like, wow. So Joy's announcement came out first, and then 4 or 5 other shows got canceled. Apparently, Rachel Maddow has lost over half of her staff. And then the shows that got canceled, those people who were producers and writers and things on their shows, Joy said she had about 60 people that put her show together. So when people say, well, just do it on your own, it's like, who can afford a staff of 60 people unless you're a billionaire? I don't think people understand. I think with this world of YouTube and podcasts and people doing things from home, people are like, oh, you can just do it from home. It's no big deal. It is a big deal when you are used to a certain level of show and your audience is used to a certain level of show. And then you have an HR department, you have a legal department, you have support in many different ways when you have a job like that. Plus, you have a salary that comes in every week or every year you have a salary that is set and you build your life around that. So he's like, just do it yourself. Well, she's okay. She will be okay, as she has said. She will be okay. But she's devastated because it was such a shock. She just spent time renegotiating her contract. And then this new woman comes in. And typically when people come in, they do a shakeup. But you have to go listen to what Rachel Maddow said, because the way that it was done is just as much of a problem as the fact that it was done. So it was some shade. It's some shade happening. And when you work together with people like that, there's a bond that builds. And so everybody wants to take care of everybody. It's tough. But I think this whole thing with MSNBC started with Joe and Mika. First, it started with the election, but people were going to come back and watch the news. But when they did that, it was like people were already in a space of, I'm over this. But here's the thing, Joe and Mika still have their show. Their ratings have dropped the most. And I think there's maybe 3 black people left, and 2 of them, Simone Sanders and the guy who was Michael Steele, have a show together with a white lady. Now, I would catch their clip. They get it together too, but they moved into Joy and Reid's spot. And then some other things happened. I'm not an expert on MSNBC. I've just been looking at this from the perspective of, wow, this is incredible. Wow, there's really a shakeup going on. And then I saw that Roland Martin tweeted that the Griot, which is the black news publication, they laid off all of their staff but 4 people. So I'm like, what is going on? So it's just yes, people are not watching mainstream media, but I don't know if it's about the DEI efforts, if that's coming down, or if there's something else going on. But what came to me today, because my spidey senses be spideying, what came to me today was I was like, all the people they laid off were not just people of color, but many of them were first generation. So it was like, well, maybe this is about the whole America first. Because first I was like, oh, and it is racism. But I was like, well, why? Because at first we just heard about Joy and Reid. I was like, well, how are they going to get rid of a black woman? She's powerful and she's correct. And then everybody, people came after that. An Asian woman, an Egyptian man, and other people. And I was just like, wow. So clearly there's something bigger happening. And I thought, well, is this a part of this America First agenda? Because the people that are left, except for the three black people, are all white. All white. There's no Latino, there's no Asian. White. White. People, I was like, I didn't even know they were on the network because I only see the people that I see. Anyway, I say all that to say there's a shakeup going on And I kind of sensed something was really shifting when Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post. I never thought that was a great idea to have somebody like him own a newspaper. He is not Michael Bloomberg. He's not for the people. He's for himself. And it was highlighted when he shut down an editorial that the paper was endorsing Kamala Harris. And when he did that, people were like shocked because that's censorship. And the Washington Post is known, they have a lot of credence and they have a great reputation in their delivery of the media. And so when he did that, it was a shock to everybody. People resigned after that because it's like, wait a minute. This is the opinion side and we're giving our opinion, and that's what this side is for. And he's even shut it down even more to say the opinion pieces are only going to be about business and business networking. So basically, he'll be able to say what he wants to say about business. So people are already, they're boycotting MSNBC, and they are unsubscribing from the Washington Post. So that's going to be even more layoffs because if the readership goes down for the Washington Post, that means advertisers are not coming in. And what happens when situations like that, if they are saying, well, we want a more fair and balanced media. Okay, but you hired people who give their opinions, and that's what you do. And even if you want to go to a more fair and balanced medium, you can work with the shows that are already there. But to cold turkey take people out and then to say, well, you can either take a buyout or you can get another job in the organization. Some people took a job and some people took a buyout. So I don't know what Joanne's deal was, but she said she'll be fine. But one thing about Joanne Reid, when you free somebody from the restrictions of a journalism organization, somebody like her, it's on now. And she's got the backing to have it because it was a Sunday night Win with Black Women called for an emergency call. I had gotten off the call with my family. I opened up my computer and there was an email. Happening right now. I forgot what the title was, but it was call to action for Joanne Reid. So there was like a 1.5 hour meeting, call to action, and everybody was ready to go. And the call to action was to watch her show. We wanted her to have high ratings and then turn the TV off. And then a hashtag TV off, which means no more MSNBC. Because, you got to let people, you got, what did Kendrick say? You got to pop up, and I'm not going to say the whole thing, but you got to pop up and show them. So that was a pop up and show them moment that you don't want the people we like, then you don't want us. And that's been this whole boycott season, which I absolutely love that people are doing. It's like, you don't want us, then you don't want our dollars when everybody's rolling back DEI. Now, I have my opinions about DEI, but overall, I think it has been beneficial in a positive way. Was it perfect? Absolutely not. But nothing is perfect until it is. But to pull it away is definitely going backwards. But anyway, so Roland Martin explained that he has on his show, the Black Star Network is what he calls it. He has 5 different shows and he has 13 employees. And Don Lemon now has his own show. Since he left CNN, he's fine. He does not have to work. But he does a show on YouTube. His show is on YouTube, mainly YouTube. And he's doing really well. He's already gotten, I think, almost 600,000 subscribers. He has his own production team. He bought a studio that he doesn't use. He does it from his house. But he does have a production team that he has to pay. I don't know how many he has, maybe 3 or 4 people. But it takes, it's not simple when people are like, you just plug in and record your voice. Absolutely. But when you're doing something to the level in which they do it, you have to have a team. You have to be able to develop a show that is consistent week by week. And inconsistent is when you're doing it all by yourself. Hello, hand raised, hand raised. Because it gets to be a lot. And sometimes you're just waiting on the opportunity to unfold when you're looking for, I'll use my podcast as an example. I'm not Joy Reid, but one day I plan to be the Oprah of audio. And here's the thing. For instance, I received a lot of pitches to have people become guests from booking agents, publicists, and publishing companies. People have written books. And I love the ones coming from the publishing company because a lot of them just happen to be people that I admire. And so they send me the book, they send me the information, and their pitch is beautiful. So some of them I say no, some of them I say yes. I'm starting to get pitches from one lady has a knitting something. I don't know. I was like, I couldn't tell you anything about knitting. So I was like, no, thank you. I don't want to take that one. But typically when you have a producer or you have a team, they're doing all of those things. So for instance, Don will have a planning meeting. And because he does news of the day, they have to sit down and go through news of the day. So he's doing what he did with CNN on his own. But if you have interviews, he's not calling and setting up interviews. His team is. Editing the broadcast, he's not doing that. His team is. Now, he can run it by himself, but when he does it by himself, it doesn't look anything like when his producers are there. So when people often say, well, just go off and do it yourself. Do your own thing. That's fine. But you have to have the capital to do it at the level that they do it at. It's not just, well, pay an editor or do this or do that or do it yourself. The caliber in which they do it, unless you already have the working knowledge of how to do it, then can you make that happen. But here's the thing. Because there is a shakeup across media all the way around, Jim Acosta was just fired. He was fired because he challenged somebody. It's like they don't want anybody to challenge anybody anymore. Everybody's so sensitive. The people who are the toughest and who are cutting all the things, they're so sensitive. You ask them a question or confront them about a lie. Amazing. And so people are getting fired. And so Jim Acosta left. Chris Como was a whole different situation. I don't know what he's on right now. But it's amazing because we're supposed to be the land of freedom of speech. That's what everybody says. I should be free to be able to say whatever I want to. But then for some strange reason, the orange moon has risen and people are being censored. This is pure censorship. It's nothing else. It has to do with race, but in my opinion, it's race and censorship. They don't want these voices and opinions out there. So I'm curious to know who they're going to replace these shows with. Because when I read an article today, I think it was in The Guardian, they were saying that by the time that this whole shakeup is done, they will actually have more employees and be a much bigger organization, which is why people are allowed to reapply for new positions in the company. So none of it makes any sense, but I'm not a president of a news company. I'm only the president of this podcast. But back to Joanne Reid, which is the original conversation. When she was on the meeting, she just started crying because it happened Saturday and she was still in her raw emotions. And we all started crying. Everybody, ended up being about 22,000 people. And Win with Black Men was there and Win with Black Women was there. And it was like, whatever you need us to do, the Army is ready. The Army was ready. me tell you something. When we galvanize, when I tell you that in this time, in this moment, we have all learned the lessons from the civil rights movement. So we have all learned the lessons from the Ferguson Rebellion and all of the other protests, the organized protests in the different cities that happened. We have all learned how to galvanize in a very intelligent way. And I don't mean that any other way was not smart. All of them are smart. But this way, it keeps us safe. And we go to the heart of the matter instead of trying to figure it out. We know exactly how these people tick. It is money. So capitalism protest meets up with capitalism grossness. Okay, it's easy. We have recognized that Black folks as a collective have the economy of a nation. Of a nation. $1.8 trillion is our spending power as a community, a Black community, Black American community. And it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is why I think that the Orange Moon had that Black History celebration, because he sees our power. What I love is that we see our power. The fact that in an hour you can galvanize 22,000 women to support a woman who just lost her job. Excuse me. I needed something to drink. A woman who just lost her job and be ready to go Monday. Was their last show Monday or Tuesday, but be ready to go. They had collateral material, they had hashtags, they had they had a color of change, had a what do you call it? When you sign up, collect signatures. It escapes me right now. But it was a beautiful operation that was pulled together. And this is the same coalition that galvanized behind Kamala Harris when we had 90 days to get her to be president. Unprecedented. Unprecedented. This was unprecedented. And we are just getting, you know how they talk about the AI models? They just get smarter and smarter and smarter. We are just getting smarter and smarter and smarter. We don't have to hit those streets. We hit those pockets. And that's when the walls come crumbling down. I often think of, and I know most people are going to think I think of this, but The Wall by Pink Floyd talks about when those walls come tumbling down. The Matrix talks about it, when those walls when the walls of the Matrix come tumbling down. And so I said, well, let's look at this from another angle. Let's reframe this story. Let's reframe this story in not that Black media is being shut down, but Black media is going through a renaissance. There is going to be a renaissance of Black media like you've never seen before. There are going to be people who have been in this game on the independent world coming together and galvanizing. It's like when you see Roland Martin's show, he's putting together a series of shows. So he's building out a network that will remain on social media until maybe he'll go to, there one day will be an opportunity for a partnership, but he's doing fine where he is. And he's able to bring together scholars and economists and journalists and attorneys, all to have these very smart, well thought out conversations about what's happening with Black America. Don Lemon, I wouldn't specifically say he's a Black man with his own media company, but he's not just talking about Black people's business. He's talking about business. He's talking about politics. And so he's able to do what he does. And then Tiffany and Angela Rye have a podcast, and Van Latham has a podcast. So there are people out there talking. You just have to find them. Because what's going to happen is you're going to see less and less of us on these sites, with these companies, MSNBC and all the places, unless you're doing entertainment, like Robin Roberts or Gayle King. Like they're too big to fall. You can't get rid of them. They're superstars in the game, just like Rachel Maddow. But Rachel Maddow, with her show, she has she's doing 100 days, 5 days a week, and then she's strictly going back to 1 day a week. She's over it. She's not going to spend 5 days a week talking about the orange moon. So anyway, I feel like that so if you have a voice and you want to get it out there, now is the perfect time to do it. I know I keep talking to y'all about start a podcast, start a podcast, start a podcast. I promise you don't have to do an MSNBC type show. You can sit in your living room with your microphone and your computer and record great shows with development. Trust me. Trust me, you can build a brand sitting at your desk and creating ideas. And if you can't do it, you know how to find me. You know how to go to helloblackwomenamplified.com. And if you're interested in setting up time, we can go through your ideas, develop your show one-on-one so that you can create a great show. Because here's the thing about creating a great show and a great brand. You're able to have conversations with people that you would be amazed by. Sometimes I look at the people I've interviewed, I'm like, they're on my show? I remember I had a guest one time, and she was on my show on Thursday, and on Friday she was on the Sherry Shepherd show. I'm like, but God, it's all God. I'm like, how did I get in that loop? Like, she's interviewing Black Women Amplified, and then she is on the Sherry Shepherd show. And she gave me an exclusive. She said, I have a surprise. Now, we didn't talk about it on the podcast, but her publicist emailed me and said she wanted you to know that she's going to be on the Sherry Shepherd show. I was like, oh my God. So she's going to be on in the same week. So anyway, it was all God. It's all God. It's all God. But here's the thing. And this is the reason I say if you have an idea or inkling to do it, here's why it's the perfect time. Because when Joy Reid leaves her platform, then those are guests that would normally be on her show. They don't have a platform anymore. So not only are you deplatforming Joanne Reid, you are deplatforming the people that she had on the show. And so they will be looking for places to go. And here's the thing, you don't have to have a big audience for them to come to you, because everybody knows how to leverage an interview. That's a whole nother thing. But you have to understand that if you are like, if you're used to be a journalist and you're like, well, maybe I could do this, you can. If you have an idea about a pop culture show, you can, because when you don't have platforms, celebrities don't have places to go to. And there's only so many people that can fit on Sherry's couch and Jennifer J. Hud's couch. There's only so many people that can go down the Spirit Hall a week, right? So it's creating spaces for all of this to happen. And in this Black media renaissance, it is the perfect time to get into it. Is it challenging? Yes. Is there a learning curve? Yes. Is it work? Yes. And I've been interviewed on podcasts. There's people that do it much simpler than I do, but my ambition is specific to this podcast, which is why I curate who's on the show. There are people who are just like, sign up, and no shade to them, but they just have a different philosophy than I do. I'm creating a collection of stories that are archived, that are something that I can leave behind. And I researched my interviews and I put together the questions. I put together 50 questions per interview. You know how I learned that from? Barbara Walters. That's what she said. She said, put together 50 questions and refine and refine and refine. So when I looked at who can I learn from and what area do I want to be in. I studied Oprah. I studied Rochelle Carey, who was a guest on our show, and I studied Barbara Walters. All three educated and well. Their list is long. Their resume is long, long, long about the work that they have done. But I got a lot of insights from Barbara Walters just watching her interview people and listening to people talk about her of what they taught them. So I'm curious and I pay attention to everything. So when I said I wanted to do this podcast, I said, well, I want to be the Oprah of audio. Oprah gives really great interviews. I don't love all of the interviews that she's done, but I know if I watch her and other people and study the interview process, I would develop my own way. And it's a very well-researched way of doing things. I don't want to talk to people and I don't know anything about them. I don't want to have a blind conversation with people. I remember when I did, and I'm going to say this and this is going to be it, but when I did the interview with Chapel Hart, I literally had 3 days to put it together. So I had to stop doing everything I needed to do, and I had to condense my 2-week process into 2 days so that I was ready to have a conversation with them. And then I asked another person who has worked with them, this is the angle I want to cover, but they don't talk about these type of things. How do I approach it? She says, do this. And I did it, and the interview is beautiful. You can listen to it on the Black Women Amplified podcast. But here's the thing. In times like these, when everything seems to be falling apart, not even seems to be, things are falling apart, there's also an opportunity for growth if we move past the panic and the oh my God. And there are things that people that are going through and they're having to pivot their whole career, pivot their whole lifestyle. But guess what? We did this in 2020. And Black folks have always done it. What do you think they always say? We have 10 jobs. We have always had to switch our careers and change and shift and change and shift. But here's the thing. You have the ability to do it. You have the intelligence to do it. And you have the innovative mindset to do it. You just have to move past the oh my God moment and do it. So if you're looking to become diversify what you do, or if you've been in diversity, equity, inclusion for so long, but now you got to X out of that type of program. What else can you do? What else do you bring to the table? Because I know you got skill. I know you got skills out of everywhere, out of all of your body. I know you're gifted. You have talents. You have skills. You have all the things you need to create something else, just like you created this. So please don't be discouraged about all of these things happening. And I know Joanne Reid said she's always planning something. And so now she's on Substack, and Substack is like Twitter and YouTube and Apple Podcasts all put together. It's a big tent. But that's where Jim Acosta is, and he's doing his show there. So, and Don Lemon is doing his show on YouTube. So there are all of these different places where you can put your voice, you can put your energy, and you can become a part of the Black media renaissance. And I encourage you to do it. I encourage everybody to do it because, like I continue to say, when they try and silence us, we need to get louder. So thank you for joining this impromptu episode of the Black Women Amplified podcast. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that you share it with a friend, text it to somebody who's maybe dealing with different situations, or they need a little inspiration to go ahead and start that podcast. Make sure you send them this episode. Also, I've opened up opportunities for people to help and sponsor the show. A monthly small amount of funds will help keep this show going and help to support the show. Not keep the show going because I'm going to be doing it, but it will help support the podcast and all of the things that go on behind the scenes that need to be taken care of. So anyway, that is on. If you go to the show notes, there should be a either subscription or sponsorship button and you can make it a recurring situation every month. Anyway, I say all that to say, enjoy the Renaissance, baby. We are all pivoting, shifting, and changing. And just like I've added the Power Story Academy, where I'm teaching people how to put their voices out there, how to overcome the thoughts in their heads, their imposter syndrome, and really heal from those stories that we tell ourselves. As well as we'll have a podcasting masterclass. And I feel like I need to teach people how to pitch themselves. After all the pitches that I read today, I'm like, maybe I need to do a class on how to pitch yourself to a podcast properly and how to build a platform. Because here's the thing, I'm gonna say this, and I didn't mean for this to go on this long, but it just is what it is. When you put yourself out there, you have got to build a platform. There are people that tell you, oh, you don't need a website. You need a website. You know why? Because your website is your internet home. I have 2 websites. I have MonicaWisdomHQ.com, and then I have BlackWomanAmplified.com. I built both of them myself. Yes, it was a long learning curve. And I never thought I'd be doing technology, but when you're an entrepreneur, you got to figure some stuff out. But the only other way was for me to pay somebody $5,000 to $7,000 to build it. And I just didn't have that money. So that's a whole nother story. But you need a platform. You don't need just social media. Because as we can see, social media is not dependable. Is TikTok going away in a couple of months? I don't know. But it's not dependable. And it's fine for promotion, but you have got to have an internet home. So please get a website. Please get a website where you can put your bio, your about page, let people know your values and your standards and what you offer, no matter what it is. If you're just selling t-shirts, have a website. Because people in this era of AI, people have to know who you are. And people have to be able to go and find out more about you. Because if somebody pitches me for a podcast for somebody, I need to know more about that person to make sure that they are who they say they are. Not just, hey, this person's great and they do this and they do this. If I can't research you and find evidence of what you say that, or you say that your client does, how do I know it's real? I don't know that. So, evidence, an internet home, evidence. Post your pictures on your put your Instagram feed on your website. Put events that you've gone to on your website. Write a blog post about what you've done. Evidence, 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 and that's in your internet home. And let me get off this tangent. I've gone into something completely different. Anyway, much love to you all. Please have a moment and listen to the interview that I posted today with Dr. Reid Grant, who is the first Black woman to have her own show in wildlife. She's the co-host of Wild Kingdom, and she wrote a memoir called Wildlife, which is actually one of my favorite memoirs that I've read ever, and it was put out by John Legend's publishing company. So anyway, check that out. Check this out. Check all the things out. If you're inclined, please subscribe. And become a sponsor of the show. And I'll give you a little shout out and a little thanks because I appreciate all of it. Anyway, much love to you all. Have an amazing weekend, and you will hear from me soon.